Welcome back. In this session, let us take one more example to demonstrate the use of the classes and then objects in Java. For this session, I would like to consider an example as a student, and then I am going to consider the data members of this student class as roll number or register number, name, and let me assume that I want to handle the data such as subject 1 marks, subject 2 marks, and then subject 3 marks. So for every individual student data, we need to create one object for this student class. So let us get into the programming, actual programming. So let me use any one of the editor. I'm using the Sublime editor, SUBL, student demo.java. And let me write down the basic code for this student demo.java class student demo. And then let me include the main method over here, public static void main string AR. This is the basic framework which is required to execute your student demo program. And now what I'm interested to do is I want to handle the student data. And if you are considering a class, so each in the suppose let us assume that that class is having 60 students, and then typically a 60 students, and then what are the data that I am supposed to handle for the 60 students are their marks in three subjects. Now my entire project is revolving around this particular objective to process the marks of the students and then to figure out what is the minimum marks that they have gained, what is the maximum marks, what is the average, what is the I mean, how many subjects they have passed, how many subjects they have failed. So to perform all these operations, we require three subject marks. I am considering in this sample as an only three subjects. It can be further extended up to the 10 subjects or one semester, or if we are considering, I mean, total around the 72 to 100 subjects within any course. So likewise, you can further extend, but for the sample, I am considering only the three subject marks. And then for each student, we are supposed to handle these three subject marks. So how we can able to differentiate from one student to other student based on the basic features such as an register number and their name. Even name is an optional one. Even with if we are having only the register number, then we can able to differentiate between the people uniquely. So it is up to us whether to consider the register number only or whether should we also require the name also for the sake of the display purpose. It is up to you. So totally we identified for each student we are supposed to handle the data of the register number, name, and then subject 1 marks, subject 2 marks, and then subject 3 marks. So these are the common properties that we are going to address for this application. So you may also think like why shouldn't we consider height weight? But there is no significance of the height weight for this particular application when you are observing the real world students. In order to differentiate that, these are also the parameters, but for this application there is no significance, so that is why we don't consider them. So by considering these particular five features, we want to differentiate among the various students. So let us give a proper prototype or proper definition how students should look like. In order to give the proper prototype, we'll be taking the help of the class. So a class is a collection, I mean, it is a general template of the collection of objects. Suppose if we are having 60 students, what are the common attributes or the common behave, what is the common set of the properties, or what are the common behavior we are going to identify them, and then we are going to create one template of that, and then we are giving some name to that, so that whenever anybody else would like to climb like a student, then um, they can by default adopt this sort of the appearance or physical, I mean physical properties, as well as in this sort of the behavior. So let me define the class. So in order to define any class, we will be using a syntax like class space class name. Here, the class name that we are considering as a student. Whenever we are using the class name student in Java, we will be using a convention for any class name, every word starting letter to be capital. So hence, I will be considering S in the student to be capital, opening bracket and then closing bracket. In this particular class, I am supposed to define the properties or features, then behavior. So properties and then behavior we are supposed to define. The properties are also called as an instance members or variables. Instance members are variable, and then behavior is defined by means of the methods. And the specialty with respect to this class is going to act like a protection sheet, which will be allowing these particular instance members or the data members to be accessible only by these methods, not outside this particular class. So that is why class enables the encapsulation feature. Class is going to encapsulate or bind. I am repeating once again. Class is going to encapsulate or bind both the data members and then methods as in one single unit. This is a one more definition. Now the properties we identified, which are going to happen high significance for this particular application in the students, we are supposed to have the register number, name, subject 1 marks, subject 2 marks, and then subject 3 marks. You can also consider an array of the subject marks. So let us try to figure out how we can do in the normal way, and then later let us change that to the arrays. Now let me define a data members. In order to declare the data members, the basic thing that we are supposed to use is in data type space variable name. Since the register number in some of the colleges or in some of the universities, the register number may also contain some parts of the string, so that each number can be uniquely identified. Even their branch or their group can also be part of that register number. So we cannot pick any of the numeric data type. Here I am considering a register number to be string data type. Suppose in your particular college or in your particular application, you want to consider the register number to be a numeric value, then I prefer you to use any sort of the numeric data type, such as in we are having alternatives like short, byte short, int long, and then but mostly float decimal type of the data types are not preferred over. And then here, since the register number I'm considering to have the string type, then I'm going to use a string. And let me remind you one more time, the string is a non-primitive data type, and then register number name can also be of the type of string. Coming to the subject one, subject two, subject three marks, to this particular application, we are declaring them as an normal byte because the range of the values that I am thinking all are in whole numbers itself, as well as in all are the positive numbers within the range of zero. I mean, within the 100. So that is why I am preferring to have the values, I mean data type to be byte. You are also, according to your requirement, you can also modify this to your own way. For example, you can prefer either short or int according to your requirement. You can able to change, but more or less, each subject contains, I mean, up to 0 to 100 range. Then we'll be preferring this. Suppose if it is exceeding, then I will go with a short, where it is having the maximum range up to the minus 32,767 to 32,768. So I will be preferring this one now. Subject 1 marks, subject 2 marks, and then subject 3 marks. So here each student uniquely differentiated by means of these features. And then we are going to handle this particular data. Maybe sometimes subject 1, subject 2, subject 3 marks may be matching with some other student, but there will be a variation with the register number and the name, which will enable us to uniquely identify what we are supposed to, I mean, how we are supposed to perform the calculation. So this is about student, the properties or the instance members of the student class. Now let me add some behavior or the methods. See, any application will be having some of the root cause in the sense the mean of the application, why we are writing this application. Here, the intended application is supposed to calculate what is the total marks that they have obtained. For example, let us limitize to that, and then let us check whether it is working fine for me or not. So, in order to calculate the sum, we are supposed to have what are the values for subject 1 marks, subject 2 marks, and then subject 3 marks. We are supposed to sum all those three, and then we are supposed to return that value. So, let me define the basic method definition will be an access specifier, space, return type, space, method name, and then argument list, followed by opening bracket and then closing bracket. So this is the general syntax. But anyhow, we are not uh, we are our the scope of this demonstration is only limited to the definition of the class as well as in how this will be useful. I mean, how we can use the objects to access the data members and then methods of the class. How it is provided in the encapsulations. Hence, I am not discussing the access specifier much, and then I'm using the default access specifier itself. Then, whenever we are defining the method, first of all, just write down what is the purpose of the method name. Here, the purpose is to calculate sum. So, it is always preferred to use shorter method names, but mostly in the web or action form are preferred to have a method in it. So let us consider this calculate sum. If you observe here, since it is having the two words, the second word starting letter is converted as an, I mean, are written as in capital S. Why I wrote like that? The reason is that because this is going to, Java is going to follow the convention camel case. So in the method names, How we adapt the camel case? Except the first word, remaining all words starting letters should be the capital letters. And then let me, yes, this is the basic. I mean, opening bracket and then closing bracket. Forget about adding the argument list and then return type. Based on our requirement, we can add it later, right? And then to calculate the sum, we need not to pass any parameters. We already have the data like in subject 1, subject 2, and then subject 3 uh, with us because they are accessible within the method. So that is the great thing about the class. So you need not again pass the values for it. So now I'm using these values and then I'm going to calculate the sum and then I want to return that sum. So in order to return, I will be using the return statement, return, and then what is the value that I want to return? Subject 1 plus subject 2 plus subject 3. And then most probably, since all of them are in the short format, we are expecting the return value also to be the short format. Then the return type, it will become like in short itself. For the time being, what is the access specifier that we will be having? The access specifier will be the default access specifier itself. So what is this default access specifier, and then how it is different from other access specifiers? We will be discussing that in the later section. So now this is what we have done, and then let us add one more method to display the scores. So if you want to display the score, then the method that I am interested to add is the display method. Since the display is only going to display what are the contents of this, I mean, data members of a particular student. So it is not going to return any value. If it is not returning any value, then the return type will be void itself, void display student. And you can also condense that to the display. And then whatever the values for the register number, name, we will simply displaying that. In order to display, we will be taking the help of the predefined function system dot out dot mental. So let us print the values, register number, and then similarly subject to subject 3. So likewise, we are going to display the values. If you want to add some more description to that, you can add like this: register number colon plus. Here the plus is used as a concatenation operator, and then this is going to add this particular register number which belongs to that particular student, and then it is going to add to the string and then it is displaying that string. Similarly, you want to add some more description for the rest of the things, you can do that. Mostly for any professional applications, much more readability should be there, and then this has to give some direction to the user, what kind of the information that it is going to display. Here, instead of the subject one, you can give some name, C programming, marks, and then here, let us say Java programming, marks, and then last one, Python programming marks. This is only for the sake of the display. This does not reflect the original, I mean, whatever the things that you will observe in your day-to-day class. Um, I mean, whatever the subject list that you will be having in your course, I am taking the C programming marks, Java programming marks as in such. Till now, we wrote two of the methods. One is to calculate the sum, other one is to display. Now, the thing is that suppose whenever I am creating a new object, it is going to allocate the memory for register number, name, and then subject 1 marks, subject 2 marks, and then subject 3 marks. But there won't be any initial values for these for these data members. In order to initialize the data members, we will be using a special type of the method. That method is called as a constructor. So what is the constructor? The constructor is a method used to initialize data members and methods. Data members. Here the data members are register number, name, subject 1 and subject 2 and then subject 3. These are also called as an instance members. Why these are called as an instance members? Every time you create a new object, there will be separate memory allocation for all these member variables. Hence, these are also known to be as an instance members. That means for every instance, it is going to allocate the memory for this. So these are also called as an instance members. So now, let me write down what is the prototype for this constructor. So the syntax is class name followed by here argument list opening bracket and then closing bracket. But for the time being, let us create one default constructor. The default constructor means which does not going to consider any of the arguments. So what is the class name here? Student is the class name. So the constructor name should also be student itself. So student and then that's it. So this is how um, we are going to define the constructor. So these constructors can be overloaded, but I am not going to discuss about the constructor overloading for the time being, uh, mm, because that is out of the scope of this particular topic. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to initialize the register number to be uh, something, and then name to be something empty, and then subject 1 marks to be 100, subject 2 marks to be 100, and then subject 3 marks to be 100. I'm declaring like this. That means whenever a new object is created, it is going to create the value 000 and for the register number, and for the name it is an empty. And then we can take the help of the getter methods as well as the setter methods. So what is this getter method and then what is the setter method? Setter method is used to uh, set a particular attribute. Suppose if I want to set the value for the register number, then the setter method what I can use is set register number. Set register number. So what it is going to do, whatever the value that you pass, for example, I am passing string RNO, then it is going to assign that to the register number. Register number equal to RNO. Since there is nothing to return, we will be using void. This is the common prototype. Now it is your turn. Now what can be the setter for the name? Yes, you are right. So the setup for the name is void set name, and then the value that we are supposed to pass string n. While we are discussing about the this operator, I will tell you you can also pass the same name as an parameter name. Okay. So now for the time being, I am considering name equal to n. Since this is also not going to return any value like this. you can similarly you can also complete the rest. Void set sub1. Since the sub1 is of type short, I am supposed to use short s1 and then initialize equal to s1. Similarly, let me copy this and then paste. Here it is sub2, s2, sub3, s3, and here it is sub2. So this is how what I'm going to do. I'm going to include some setter methods. Similarly, you can also write down the getter methods. So how to write down? For example, if my data member is a register member, the getter method will be get register number, and then return type, since the register number is of the type short, no, sorry, string, the return type will be string get register number, and then it is going to return register number. Likewise, you can also add the getter methods. Instead of initializing only one data member, you can also initialize all the data members separately. So how, within one function, how you can do that? Simply void set all. Simply you pass string s, a string rno, string name n, short s1, short s2, short s3. When you learn about the constructor overloading, then the set all method can be replaced with an parameterized constructor. That is how you can simplify the task. Now let me initialize all the parameters. Register number equal to RNO, name equal to N, subject 1 equal to S1, sub 2 equal to S2, sub 3 equal to S3. So likewise, we can assign all the five data members at once. Five data members at once. Uh, Here initially we are assigning some value. Suppose you want to set with your own required value, you can do that. Now, I think we defined a template how a student should look like with the data members like register number, name, subject 1 marks, subject 2 marks, and then subject 3 marks. I'm just simply removing these comments and check whether are there any errors or not for this application. I always prefer to use the incremental compilation. That means whenever you add some part of the code, just execute, just compile the code once again, and then whenever if you find some errors, you rectify there itself. This will enhance your coding ability. So Java C space student demo dot Java. It is showing some errors in this. Okay, the possible incompatible type. So, because all the values are of the short type. So what we can do, we can simply do one thing. Short of this type conversion, we can do that. Total value. And then let us recompile once again. Now we don't get any error. This is because of the possible loss of the precision, because after adding all the short values, this may result as some bigger number integer. So it is asking me whether you want to lose those, precious the data. Are you okay with that, or would you like to change the data type? So because I know because all my subject marks in my application are within the range of 0 to 100, and then I'm well aware of giving the inputs. So I'm going to take the risk of missing that excess value. So now This is what, and then you can also add one method, read all these data numbers. So how you can do that? Simply you add void read data, and then I'm not going to pass any value. Simply enter system.out.println, enter name. Then you can read some name to the name. So or okay, name equal to now, since we are supposed to read this data from the keyboard, then we are supposed to create one object here. So scanner sc equal to new scanner of system dot in. After 3 or 4 programs, you will get to know why and then how this syntax is like scanner sc equals new scanner of system dot in. And now what I'm going to do, since this scanner class I'm not writing, I want to get it from the Java itself. So import java dot util dot star. Since the scanner class is available over there, I'm importing that. Import java dot util dot star. Now I can make use of this scanner class object to read anything. If you want to read a string, then sc dot next. That is a method that we will be using. Similarly, I want to read the register number. So system dot out dot print enter register number, and then now register number equal to sc dot next. Why sc dot next? The reason is that since register number is declared as a string, we are reading the string and then assigning that to the register number. And then here also I am removing ln because it will be reading in the same line itself. Similarly, I am supposed to read the rest of the things. So system dot out dot print enter the programming marks, and then if you want to read the marks, sub1 equal to sc dot next dot. So that is how I will be reading. Similarly, I am supposed to read the rest too. The rest of the two are Java marks and then Python marks, right? So I will change this to Java, and then here it is Python. Instead of subject 1, subject 2, and then here subject 3. So likewise, I can also read all the values from the keyboard itself. And then you can also make use of the buffered reader. Buffered reader can also be helping you to give input from the keyboard. But while you are accessing the buffered reader, even though it is an efficient, we are supposed to handle exceptions on that. But right now, I want to uh, reduce the code. I just wanted to utilize the existing scanner class itself, so that is why I am not demonstrating that. This is about student class. If you observe, I have created the student class with the data members, 5 data members, register number, name, subject 1, subject 2, subject 3 marks, and then I have included one constructor, and then I have created setter methods as well as in set all methods as well as in one read data. Similarly, I have included calculate sum and then display methods. All these methods will be sharing these particular data members, which is only possible with Java because of the concept of the class. Suppose in C language, if you want to declare any variable, that variable, if you declare it within the function, then that will be accessible only within the function. If you keep it globally, then every function in the program will be using that. But suppose you want to restrict the access of 5 particular variables only within these particular methods, then we can make use of the class concept, which is going to protect the data. because it is going to bind these data members only for this particular methods. So that is how class is going to act like an protection sheet, uh, or I mean it is going to restrict the access. Now we have the definition. Now let us bring some students, and then let us check how our application is going to perform for particular student. Okay, so class is only a template or the definition, but whereas if you want to bring any definition to the reality, then you are supposed to create one object for that particular class. So what is the object that let us create? Let us create an object name as an S1. If you want to declare any object, object is a real world entity which has state and behavior. Now, in order to declare any object, we will be using the syntax like class name space object name. Here, to which class we are supposed to create an object? Student class. Student S1 equal to, we are going to use one new operator which is going to allocate the memory. So, new student of. So, what it is going to do is, it is going to call the default constructor. First, initially, it is going to allocate the memory for all the data members. What are the data members here? Register number, name, subject 1, subject 2, subject 3 are the data members. So, 5 memory locations will be created in the heap space. And then that memory address will be assigned to this particular variable S1 so that they are accessible. And then since this is the constructor, it will call this method and then initialize all the register number to be zeros and then name to be empty and then subject 1, subject 2, subject 3 marks to be 100. So likewise, we are creating the default student. Now let us try to display what are the marks or what are the details for this particular student. So what is the method which will enable us to display? Display is a method. In order to call this particular method, then we'll be using a reference of the object. So how to access any method of the class? By using a special operator called as a member access operator. Dot is a member access operator, which will help us to access the data members. So now let us call s1 dot display. Whenever we are having this display method, then it is going to call this particular method. So what is this method is all about? It is going to display the register number, name, subject 1, subject 2, subject 3 marks. But how can this able to identify which register number to be displayed? Since we are calling this display method with S1, hence here the register number I mean register number for the object S1 will be displayed over here. So this will be replaced like S1's register number, S1 dot name, S1 dot subject 1, S1 dot subject 2, S1 dot subject 3. So that is how it is going to display. Now let us compile this code and check. No error. Let us execute. We are going to get the default values, right? We are supposed to get that. We got the default values. Now I don't want to have the default values for the student S1, but whereas I want to pass some values and then initialize with the new values. So if I want to do that, then S1 I can use the setter methods. I'll be using set all and then pass the values like such as an away, register number to be CSE01, comma away, comma marks as in 45. Sorry, it should be short 45, 55, and then 34. So now Earlier, it is going to initialize with the default values. Now, after that, I will display one more time. Now you will be watching the details of the S1 before you set all and before after you set all the data members. Now let's compile again because we have done some modifications. Since we are passing short values, then we are supposed to use um, short. This type conversion is required. Okay, done. Now let us run this student demo. See, for the same student, earlier it used to be, it has created five memory location, but all the values are with the default values. Now with the modified value, CSC 01 away and then all these marks, the new, I mean, new object has been assigned with these newer values. That is how we can. You can also perform reading and then you can display after reading. So if you want to read, then we have a method called as a read data method. And then you can call that read data method using S1 itself. If you want to call that S1 dot read data, which is going to access the data from the keyboard, and then suppose you want to display, then S1 dot display. Earlier you pass these parameters, automatically these parameters are these arguments are initialized to the data members. Now we are interested in reading the values and then display the values. So now it is asking me to enter the register number. Let me give CSC02 and then name as an Geetam and then marks 100, 100, 100. Now you can also the register number is assigned with a modified value CSC02 and the name is renamed like in Geetam and then marks are also modified. That is how the data members and then methods will be working in Java. In further classes, we will be discussing elaborately about the rest of the things. Thank you. That's all for today. Thank you. Have a great day.